Florida retirement is supposed to be dead, priced out, over. Everyone knows the drill. Sky-high insurance, $500,000 condos in Miami, property taxes that'll make you weep. The Sunshine State dream? It became a punchline somewhere around 2022, except nobody told these 15 towns. Deep in Florida's interior, places you've never heard of, towns that don't show up on retirement blogs or real estate investor podcasts, there are communities where you can still buy a house for under $200,000. Not a shack. An actual house. With land. And here's the thing. We're not talking about some dystopian nightmare where you're 3 hours from a hospital and the nearest grocery store is a gas station. Some of these places have better healthcare than suburbs twice their size. The catch? They're rural. The kind of places where the biggest event of the year is a bass fishing tournament or a citrus festival. We're talking median home prices as low as $178,000, cost of living indices 17% below the national average. And the kicker? Florida's zero state income tax means your Social Security, pension, and 401k withdrawals stay completely untouched. That $200,000 house isn't just cheaper than a $500,000 condo in Tampa, it's cheaper while you're keeping thousands more of your retirement income every single year. So here's what we're doing. 15 towns, organized from the deepest inland bargains to the rarest coastal steals. Each one comes with the real numbers, median home prices, cost of living, healthcare access, and what actually makes it livable. Because the inverse relationship is brutal, the cheaper the town, the farther you'll drive for a hospital. But some of these places cracked the code. They're cheap, and they've got a modern medical center right there. You won't believe these 15 cheap Florida rural towns exist in the US. Sebring. Sebring sits in Highlands County, smack in the middle of Central Florida's interior, and for years it was the poster child for affordable retirement. Median home values were reported as low as $177,900. The cost of living index hovered around 83. That's 17% below the US average. Here's where it gets complicated. Recent data shows median sale prices have jumped to $260,000. Some estimates now peg the local cost of living at 4% above the national average, a complete reversal from historical norms. What happened? The affordable housing inventory, older mobile homes, manufactured housing stock, got bought up fast. Rapid appreciation in newer construction pushed prices up hard. The ultra-cheap window is closing. But if you're willing to dig, Highlands County still delivers. Target older housing stock. Go rural within the county. The deals are there, they're just shrinking. And here's why Sebring stands out beyond price. Healthcare density. This town has over 200 healthcare establishments and 3 general hospitals within a 25-mile radius. For a rural community, that's exceptional. Most towns this size force you to drive an hour for anything beyond a clinic. Sebring built itself into a medical hub. The vibe here is pure Central Florida recreation. Sebring International Raceway dominates the local identity. This is a car culture town. Historic downtown, multiple golf courses, lakes everywhere. It's the kind of place where retirees spend their mornings fishing and their afternoons watching vintage race cars scream around a track. If you're looking at Sebring, move fast and be strategic. The baseline affordability is real, but the market is tightening. This isn't a secret anymore. Wauchula. Wauchula is deep heartland. Hardy County. Citrus groves, cattle ranches, and absolute quiet. Median listing price sits around $279,900, with sold prices near $268,900. Housing is cheap. Land is cheaper. But here's the twist nobody mentions. Groceries in Wauchula cost 18.7% more than the US average. Some estimates put the overall cost of living 7% above the national average, which seems absurd when you're looking at sub-$280,000 housing. This is classic rural economics. Low population density means fewer retail options, less competition, higher logistics costs. You're paying more for milk and eggs because the supply chain to get them there is thinner. The savings are all in housing and land. Everything else? You're subsidizing distance. If you're the type who buys in bulk, plans trips to regional grocery chains, and doesn't mind driving 30 minutes for variety, Wauchula works. If you expect convenience, it'll frustrate you. Healthcare here is clinic-based. Serious medical issues require travel to regional centers. You're not getting acute care locally. But what you are getting is authentic pioneer Florida, the kind of environment where your neighbors are fourth-generation ranchers and the landscape hasn't changed in 50 years. Wauchula isn't for everyone. It's for people who value space and silence over infrastructure. If that's you, the housing deals are hard to beat. Dade City. Dade City sits on the northern edge of Pasco County, about 45 minutes from Tampa. Median home price, $267,365. Housing expenses are 48% below the national average, which drives the overall cost of living to 15% below the US baseline. Here's why this town is a cheat code. You get deep rural discounts while staying within striking distance of a major metro. Need specialized medical care? Tampa's 30 miles away. Want competitive grocery prices or a Costco run? You're not stuck. Dade City lets you capture the financial upside of rural living without the isolation risk that sinks other cheap towns. Local healthcare is solid too. Advent Health. Dade City runs a full hospital with a transitional care unit for post-hospitalization recovery. That's rare for a town this size and this affordable. You're not just getting clinic care, you're getting a legitimate medical safety net. The town itself leans historic. Old downtown, citrus industry heritage, small town pace. It's quiet without being dead. Retirees dominate the population, which means the community infrastructure is built around that demographic. Senior programs, accessibility, slower traffic. If you're torn between going fully rural and staying connected to urban amenities, Dade City is the compromise. It's affordable enough to stretch your retirement budget, close enough to Tampa to keep your options open. Lake City. Lake City is North Florida, Columbia County, median home value $178,600. That's one of the lowest in the state, dramatically below the national median. The housing is cheap because Lake City is geographically removed from the peninsula's tourism and coastal corridors. It's sparse suburban at best, rural at worst. But here's the infrastructure advantage that separates it from other ultra-cheap towns. Lake City sits within the Elder Options Planning and Service area. What does that mean? Superior access to federally and state-funded aging resources, the Elder Helpline, the Home Care for the Elderly program, counseling, screenings for in-home assistance, subsidized long-term care. This is a town with a governmental support network specifically built to help seniors age in place. Most rural towns don't have this. They're cheap because they're isolated and under-resourced. Lake City is cheap, but it's not under-resourced. It's plugged into a statewide infrastructure designed to support retirees. Healthcare isn't world-class, but it's functional. You're not getting a major hospital locally, but you've got access to regional facilities, and the Elder Options Network fills gaps that other towns can't. The vibe is gateway to North Florida. Rivers, state parks, quiet living. The population skews family and retiree. If you're looking for the absolute cheapest housing in Florida without completely sacrificing senior support infrastructure, Lake City is the answer. Palatka. Palatka is St. Johns River country, Putnam County. Median home prices range from $180,000 to $200,000. Cost of living index sits around 87. It's consistently ranked among Florida's most affordable towns. The appeal here is river culture. Palatka is a historic riverfront town. Boating, fishing, and affordable land dominate the identity. If you're the type who wants waterfront access without paying Gulf Coast premiums, this is your play. Palatka has had its struggles. Crime was a concern historically, but violent crime rates dropped 15% since 2020, particularly in suburban neighborhoods. The trajectory is improving. It's not perfect, but it's stabilizing. Like Lake City, Palatka benefits from Elder Options Network coverage. That means access to aging-in-place resources, long-term care programs, and direct support systems that help retirees stay independent longer. Here's the tax kicker. Properties in the $180,000 to $250,000 range can potentially qualify for Florida's enhanced senior homestead exemptions. If you're 65 or older and meet income thresholds, you could stack the standard $50,000 exemption with additional county exemptions. In some cases, that drives property tax liability close to zero. Zero property tax on a $190,000 house. No state income tax. Your retirement income goes untouched. That's the math that makes Palatka genuinely unbelievable. The sacrifice is geographic. You're not near a major metro. Healthcare requires planning, but if your priorities are river access, low cost, and true affordability, Palatka delivers. Inverness. Inverness is Citrus County, median home price around $270,000. Listing prices near $274,900. It's affordable relative to the state average, but not the absolute cheapest. Here's why it costs slightly more. HCA Florida Citrus Hospital, a 204-bed acute care facility, 24/7 emergency room, heart and vascular center, orthopedics, spine center, robotic surgery, oncology services. Most rural towns don't have this. Inverness does. And that hospital acts as a magnet, attracting financially stable retirees who prioritize medical safety. The presence of high-quality, full-service acute care in a small town drives demand, which drives prices up, but only to $270,000, which is still a steal compared to metros. This is the healthcare housing inverse relationship in action. You're paying $90,000 more than Palatka, but you're buying immediate access to specialized medical care that Palatka can't match. If you're in your 70s or 80s and health security is non-negotiable, that $90,000 premium is worth every dollar. The town itself is Chain of Lakes country. Boating, golf, outdoor recreation, strong community infrastructure. Inverness isn't isolated. It's a regional center with services that smaller towns lack. If you can afford to stretch your budget from $180,000 to $270,000, Inverness gives you the best of both worlds, rural affordability with urban-level medical safety. Cedar Key. Cedar Key is Levy County, an actual island. Median sale prices run $350,000 to $375,000. That's the highest on this list. But context matters. For desirable Florida Gulf Coast island living, $375,000 is 50% to 66% below typical coastal pricing. Comparable spots on Florida's Gulf Coast, Sanibel, Captiva, Anna Maria, start at $700,000 and climb fast. Cedar Key is cheap for what it is. The trade-off is medical access. Cedar Key Healthcare provides local services, but for major hospital care, you're leaving the island. If you have a cardiac event, you're getting transported off-island. That's the price of protected, low-density island culture. What you're buying here is lifestyle. Cedar Key is an artistic community, laid back, minimal commercialization, unspoiled natural beauty, island hopping, exceptional fishing, and a pace of life that feels like stepping back 40 years. This isn't a town for retirees who need constant medical oversight. It's a town for healthy, active retirees who value cultural uniqueness and are willing to accept medical inconvenience for access to one of Florida's last truly uncommercialized coastal environments. Apalachicola. Apalachicola is Franklin County, Florida Panhandle, the Forgotten Coast. Average home value, $286,164. Overall cost of living sits 3% below the national average, driven by housing costs that are 22% below the U.S. baseline. The reason Apalachicola stays affordable is geographic isolation. It's remote. The nearest major metro is hours away. That isolation shields it from the tourism and development pressure that obliterated affordability elsewhere on Florida's coast. The culture here is maritime. Apalachicola is known as Oyster Town, historic port, working waterfront, oyster industry heritage. The town gives you access to vast, undeveloped stretches of Gulf Coast. Dr. Julian G. Bruce St. George Island State Park, St. Vincent National Wildlife Refuge, miles of pristine beach with almost nobody on them. Healthcare is the sacrifice. Senior living facilities exist locally, but specialized medical care and trauma services require significant travel. If you need acute care, you're getting in a car for a long drive or waiting for transport. Apalachicola is for retirees who prioritize unspoiled nature, maritime culture, and low density over medical convenience. Homosassa Springs. Homosassa Springs is Citrus County. Median home price, $264,000. Appreciation hit 12.2% year over year in 2025. Demand is growing, but it's still affordable. The magic here is balance. Homosassa Springs delivers rich natural amenities without sacrificing medical safety. You're a short drive from HCA Florida Citrus Hospital in Inverness. That means you get acute care access while living in a nature-focused environment. The natural draw is Ellie Schiller Homosassa Springs Wildlife State Park. Manatees, black bears, native Florida wildlife, prime scalloping season, boating culture. This is ecotourism country without the crowds. Most rural towns force a choice: cheap housing with medical risk or higher prices with healthcare security. Homosassa Springs doesn't make you choose. You get affordability, nature, and a safety net. If your retirement vision includes manatee watching, kayaking through mangroves, and knowing there's a modern hospital 15 minutes away, Homosassa Springs is ideal. Okeechobee. Okeechobee sits on Lake Okeechobee, Florida's massive inland sea. Median sold home price runs $320,000 to $335,000. That's higher than the cheapest towns, but it reflects Okeechobee's status as a regional recreation hub. This town is entirely defined by the Big O. Lake Okeechobee is 730 square miles of water. The culture here revolves around bass fishing. Okeechobee calls itself the speckled perch capital of the world. It's central to the 152-mile Okeechobee Waterway. Nationally sanctioned professional bass tournaments happen here regularly. If you're a serious angler, this is Mecca. The fishing infrastructure, boat ramps, guides, tackle shops, tournaments, is unmatched in inland Florida. Property taxes are governed by a county millage rate of $7.9 thousand. Combined with Florida's zero income tax and senior homestead exemptions, carrying costs stay manageable even at $335,000. Healthcare is moderate. Local clinics and county facilities handle routine care. Specialty services require regional travel. But if you're healthy and active and your retirement plan centers on water recreation, Okeechobee justifies the higher price. Clewiston. Clewiston is the southern shore of Lake Okeechobee, Hendry and Glades County edge. Housing prices estimated below $300,000. Clewiston's identity is sugarcane. It's the heart of Florida's sugar industry. The town literally calls itself America's sweetest town. You can take Sugarland farm tours, see the industrial-scale agriculture that drives the local economy, and stay at the historic 1938 Clewiston Inn. The cultural niche here is agricultural heritage. This isn't a retiree boomtown. It's a working town with deep roots in farming. The demographic mix includes a strong Hispanic community, which means excellent authentic Mexican food, taquerias that locals swear by. Healthcare is regional, clinics locally, but extensive specialized treatment requires travel. Clewiston is for retirees who want agricultural authenticity, historical texture, and sub-$300,000 housing near the Big O without the fishing tournament intensity of Okeechobee itself. It's quieter, less touristy, more grounded in the actual working economy of rural Florida. Bartow. Bartow is Polk County, the county seat, housing comfortably below $300,000. The local operating millage rate sits at 4.6080, which keeps property taxes reasonable when combined with Florida's senior homestead exemptions. Here's what makes Bartow different. It's a government town on the edge of growth. As the county seat, Bartow maintains municipal services and infrastructure that purely rural towns can't match. You've got a functioning courthouse, county offices, and the kind of bureaucratic stability that translates into better maintained roads and public services. The location is strategic. Bartow sits on the fringe of the Lakeland-Winter Haven metropolitan area. Lakeland is 15 minutes away, Winter Haven is 20 minutes. Both cities offer major grocery chains, big box retail, and competitive shopping that isolated rural towns can't provide. Healthcare proximity is a major advantage. Lakeland Regional Health and Winter Haven Hospital both offer full-service options. You're not driving an hour to see a specialist. You're 20 minutes from acute care facilities that can handle serious medical events. The town itself has a distinct character built around historic architecture. Downtown Bartow features buildings from Florida's early 20th century boom, well-preserved and functional. The pace is deliberately slow. Traffic is light. The population skews older, with retirees attracted by the combination of affordability and proximity to larger cities. Bartow works for retirees who want a safety net. The cheap housing gets you in the door. The proximity to Lakeland and Winter Haven means you're never stranded. This is affordable Florida with training wheels. You're getting the financial benefits of a sub-$300,000 housing market while staying connected to urban infrastructure. Masaryktown. Masaryktown is Hernando County, and it holds one of the lowest Zillow Home Value Index averages recorded in Florida, $237,770. For retirees operating on tight budgets, this is the entry point. A $237,000 median means you can find houses in the $200,000 to $220,000 range without much difficulty. For retirees who sold property in higher-cost states, the remaining equity can often cover the purchase outright, eliminating monthly housing costs entirely. But here's what Masaryktown actually is: sparse rural, bordering on isolated. This isn't a town with a downtown or a central gathering place. It's a low-density residential area north of Tampa where housing developments spread out along rural roads without much connecting infrastructure. You're living in Masaryktown because the housing is cheap. Everything else requires driving. Groceries mean a trip to Brooksville, about 15 minutes south, or Spring Hill, roughly 20 minutes southwest. Medical care beyond basic clinics requires the same travel. The trade-off is intentional. You're converting convenience into equity. The money you're not spending on housing, potentially $100,000 to $150,000 less than you'd pay in a more developed area, stays in your retirement accounts. A $220,000 house with combined homestead exemptions could result in annual property taxes below $2,000, potentially below $1,500. Masaryktown's population skews toward people making the same calculation. Retirees who prioritize low housing costs and are willing to accept logistical inconvenience. Low density means minimal traffic, limited noise, and privacy. This is where you retire if your budget is constrained and your priority is minimizing fixed housing costs while staying in Florida. Bronson. Bronson is Levy County, located in Florida's west central interior. Housing prices are estimated below $200,000, putting it among the absolute cheapest towns in the state. This is deep rural Florida. Population density drops to nearly nothing, and the landscape is dominated by pine forests, nature preserves, and agricultural land. The appeal of Bronson is escapism. The town sits near preserved natural areas, including proximity to the Lower Suwannee National Wildlife Refuge. Wildlife is abundant. The night sky is dark enough to see the Milky Way clearly. Housing stock tends toward older construction on larger lots. Sub-$200,000 pricing often includes multiple acres of land, making it attractive for retirees who want room to spread out. But the isolation comes with serious trade-offs. Healthcare infrastructure is minimal. Bronson has local clinics for routine primary care, but anything beyond that requires travel. Gainesville, which has extensive medical facilities including the University of Florida Health System, is about 40 minutes away. That's manageable for scheduled appointments, but significant for time-sensitive medical crises. The Elder Options Network provides some support for long-term care and aging-in-place services. But Bronson requires retirees to be relatively healthy and mobile. Retail and services follow the same pattern. You're driving to Chiefland or Williston for supermarkets. Restaurants are limited. Entertainment options are nearly non-existent. Bronson works for a specific type of retiree. People who genuinely enjoy solitude, don't mind driving 30 to 40 minutes for most services, and are comfortable with self-sufficiency. The financial advantage is undeniable. Sub-$200,000 housing combined with Florida's tax structure means your monthly costs can drop to negligible levels. This is Florida for people who want out of crowds, out of noise, out of development. Micanopy. Micanopy is Alachua County positioned on the outskirts of Gainesville. Housing prices are estimated below $300,000. The town holds the distinction of being Florida's oldest inland town. The downtown area features preserved 19th century architecture, antique shops, and a main street that feels frozen in time. Micanopy has maintained its historic character without surrendering to commercial development. There are no chain stores, no strip malls. The town's identity is built around heritage tourism and preservation. But here's what separates Micanopy from other rural historic towns: proximity to the University of Florida. Gainesville is less than 15 minutes away, and that connection changes everything. The University of Florida operates UF Health, one of the most comprehensive academic medical centers in the Southeast. UF Health Shands Hospital includes Level 1 trauma care, advanced cardiac services, oncology programs, and specialized geriatric care tied to academic research. For a retiree living in Micanopy, this means access to medical resources that rival major metropolitan areas, all within a 15-minute drive. You're plugged into an academic system with resources that most rural towns simply don't have. The university connection extends beyond healthcare. Gainesville offers cultural amenities uncommon in towns of its size: performing arts programs, museums, lectures, sporting events. If you value ongoing learning or cultural programming, Gainesville delivers without requiring you to live in a dense urban environment. Micanopy's housing market reflects this unique position. Prices below $300,000 keep it competitive with other rural towns, but proximity to Gainesville creates demand that stabilizes the market. You're minutes from full-service supermarkets, retail options, and restaurants. The town itself remains walkable and pedestrian-friendly. Micanopy works for retirees who want small-town character without sacrificing access to sophisticated services. You're getting the charm and affordability of old Florida with the security of knowing that world-class medical care and urban amenities are minutes away, not hours. Affordable Florida retirement isn't dead, it's just hiding in places that don't show up on Zillow's homepage or retirement influencer Instagram feeds. These 15 towns prove the original promise still exists. You just have to be willing to trade coastal sunsets and urban convenience for agricultural landscapes, river towns, and communities where the biggest event of the year might be a base tournament or a sugarcane harvest festival. The pattern is clear. The cheapest housing clusters in North Florida near the Georgia border, the Central Gulf Inland Fringe, and the Deep Heartland. The towns anchored by hospitals cost $80,000 to $100,000 more than the most isolated spots, but that premium buys immediate access to acute care. Coastal exceptions like Cedar Key and Apalachicola still command higher prices, but they're 50% cheaper than comparable Gulf Coast locations. Florida's zero income tax amplifies everything. That $200,000 house isn't just cheaper up front, it's cheaper while you're keeping 100% of your Social Security, pension, and retirement account withdrawals at the state level. Add in senior homestead exemptions that can drive property tax to near zero on homes under $250,000, and the total monthly cost of ownership becomes negligible. The choice is yours. If healthcare access is non-negotiable, target towns like Inverness, Sebring, or Dade City. If nature and isolation matter most, Bronson or Homosassa Springs deliver. If you want coastal living without coastal prices, Apalachicola and Cedar Key are your outliers. The 15 towns exist, the tax benefits are real, the trade-offs are transparent. What's left is deciding which version of affordable Florida matches your retirement priorities.